Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Here are the notes for 5/13, Wednesday, and Thursday, 5/14. All right. Okay, so these are notes 13-7, translating the sine and cosine functions. We've done this before with other types of functions, linear functions, quadratics, cubics, all of them, and we're going to do the same thing with the sine and the cosine. Okay, so you guys, I think you're going to notice some similarities here. All right, okay, here's the main ideas. The first one, all right, transformations. We have what we refer to as a phase shift and a vertical shift. This is easy. Vertical shift just means shifting the graph up and down. Okay, so for example, all right down here would be an example of a vertical shift. We're taking the sine function or cosine function and we're moving it up to the blue one. All right, that's K. And this should look familiar. K, H, and K, we've used that before in translating other functions. So K is your vertical shift. Okay, it's at the end, we're adding or subtracting. If we add, we go up, subtract, we go down. Okay, and then we have a phase shift. Phase shift is a fancy way of just saying left or right. It's still H, and yes, H is a liar. Okay, so we're going the opposite direction. So a phase shift is going to move from this black wave here, okay, function, to the blue one. We're moving from here over to there. All right, we're shifting right or left. All right, so we're going to use these functions here. Y equals A sine B. Remember, B is the number of cycles from 0 to 2 pi. All right. Parenthesis theta minus H, parenthesis plus K. And the same thing with the cosine. Remember, sine, you're going to start, generically, you're going to start at the origin, all right, at that 0. And cosine, you are going to start either at the maximum or minimum. A is still our amplitude. Okay, remember what amplitude is. It's from the midline. So if I were to draw a midline, okay, up to the max or down to the min. All right, and again, B is the number of cycles from 0 to 2 pi. And then the period, the length of one cycle. Okay, all right. Couple formulas down here, guys, to find the midline. You can take y equals x, or max, minus the min, divide that by 2. Or y is equal to the max minus the amplitude. And we're going to use that here in a few examples. Okay? All right, so let's look down here, guys. Example number 1. What is the value of h and k in each translation? Describe the phase shift and the vertical shift. All right, so if we're given this equation, g of t equals the sine of t minus 5 plus 2. Now, guys, a lot of times they'll put theta, they'll put x, they'll put a variable. They all mean kind of the same thing, all right? So in this case, h is equal to what? H is equal to 5, and k is equal to a positive 2. Now, remember, h is a liar, all right? So h is actually 5 in this example. So that means that we would move, okay, right 5 units, and this is called a phase shift. And then for k, we would translate that up 2 units, and that is just a vertical shift. All right, fantastic. All right, over here, example 1b, okay, same thing. H, in this case, is a -3, and k is a -4. So for my phase shift, we are going to go left 3 units, and we are going to vertically shift this down 4 units. Okay? Fantastic. All right, second page. All right, so I kind of filled some of these out just to save a little bit of time here, so I don't have to fill them out as we go here. All right, so it says find the amplitude, period, phase shift, vertical shift for each equation. Give the equation for the new midline. use the parent function to graph the translated function. All right, so here we go, guys. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take this equation, y equals 3 sine x minus 2, all right, and we're gonna use the parent function. So we're gonna ignore any phase shifts or vertical shifts, and we're just gonna graph this. Y equals 3 sine of x. Okay, we're gonna keep the amplitude in there. The amplitude in this example is 3. The period, all right, remember the period is 2 pi over b, and in this case, b is 1, right? So my period would just be 2 pi. My phase shift, okay, I don't have a phase shift. There is none, all right? There's nothing in parentheses here, so I'm good to go. Vertical shift looks like I'm gonna go down 2 units, okay? So my equation for the midline would be just y equals -2. Remember, that's going to be, and we can actually draw that in, get a different color here. Y equals -2. That right there is going to be my midline, my new midline. All right, so I'm gonna graph the first one in blue and the second one in red, if I can find my marker here. There it is. Okay, 3 sine theta, or x, or theta. All right, here we go. It's sine, so we're going to start at our 0. We're going to go to a max of 3, so 0, max, 0, minimum, 3, and then 0. Now, I should have, before I did this, explained how I mark this out. Remember, if my period is 2 pi, the period is the length of one cycle. So what the easiest thing to do is take whatever it is, the period here, and then break that in half again, and then find the midpoint between those. So you have 4 equal parts. And then you just remember it's 0, max, 0, min, 0. All right, so let me graph this. And there we go. So what that is, you guys, remember, that is just the parent function of our sine function there, okay? All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this blue line and we are going to apply, we're gonna apply this vertical shift. So each of these points, I'm gonna move down 2 units. 1, 2, 1, 2, look how easy this is. 1, 2, 1, 2. And then you just reconnect. And there is my y equals 3 sine x minus 2. So we just translated and we drew this red sine function by taking the parent and then just moving it down because that was the vertical translation. Easy, easy. All right. Okay. So the big part of this is knowing how to draw the blue line, the original parent, and just being able to apply that translation. Okay, awesome. Let's try the next one. Okay, so we'll do the same thing. Let's list all of our important information here. So my amplitude in this case is the absolute value of 1, right, which is just 1. Okay, the period, again, the period is in front here, all right? So this is it's a 1, so it's 2 pi. Now, this one has a phase shift, okay? It's inside the parentheses. Remember, h is a liar. So this means I'm gonna move left pi over 2, all right? Do I have a vertical shift? Nope. There is no vertical shift. All right, if there is no vertical shift, that means my midline is going to be y equals 0. All right, so once again, we are going to start off by graphing y equals sine of x. Okay, we're going to ignore that phase shift and just graph that parent. All right. Okay, so watch. Remember, sine means we start at the 0 here, and we're going to go up. So 0. Now, my amplitude is just 1. So 0. Oops, sorry, guys. All right, so we're going to go 0. Max. 0. Min. 0. All right. Okay, fantastic. So there's my sine function. That's the generic parent function. So I'm gonna translate it in red. Now this has a phase shift of pi over 2. Well, if you notice, look at pi over 2 units is from here to here, from 0 to pi over 2. So in essence, what you're doing is moving over 2 spots to each one. Okay, so watch. Here we go. Start with this one. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. And there you go. So you can see I took the blue one, shifted it over to the red one. There's my phase shift. Okay. All right, fantastic. So let's do the next one here, guys. Let's go to example C. A lot going on in this one. So we have y equals -4 cosine theta minus 3 pi over 4 minus 1. So it looks like I have both a phase shift and a vertical shift happening here. All right, what's my amplitude? My amplitude is the absolute value of -4. So my amplitude is just 4. The period, once again, all right, b is 1, so my period is going to be 2 pi. All right, the phase shift, okay, that's inside here. I'm going to go right, 3 pi over 4. My vertical shift looks like I'm going to go down 1 unit. Okay, so the equation for my midline is going to be y equals -1. All right, again, I could draw that in. There's my midline right there. All right, so let's just graph this parent. So -4 cosine theta. Now, 2 things here. It's a negative and it's cosine, so I have to start at the minimum. Okay, I have to start at the minimum. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to go minimum, 0, maximum. This is at -4, and then back to 0, and then back to the minimum. All right, so it's going to look something like all right. Now remember, that's not my final answer. All I did was I graphed the parent. Now I'm going to take the blue function and apply our phase shift and our vertical shift. Okay? All right, so it doesn't matter what point you start with, okay? I'm going to start with this point here. So I'm going to go 3 pi over 4, okay? Which is about, well, 3/4 is 0.75, right? So that's from here to here. If this is 0.5, think of this as 0.5 pi, and this is 1 pi. Half of that would be 0.75 pi. So I'm going to move from 1, 2, 3 units, 2, 3 units over. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and we'll go 1, 2, 3. So again, you guys, I want to make sure you understand the length of that phase shift is 3 pi over 4. So that's from 0 to 3 pi over 4 is this distance right here, 1, 2, 3. So now, okay, let's see here. I'm going to graph this. And that's y equals -4 cosine theta minus 3 pi over 4 minus 1. Okay, I ran out of room there. Okay, translated using that function. Okay, and using that parent and applying the phase shift and the vertical shift. Okay, let's keep going here, guys. All right, we got D. All right, same thing. All right, let me fill in all the information here. So this is the amplitude. Okay, looks like 2. All right, the period. All right, now, in this case, B is 2. So the period is 2 pi over B, which is 2, or just pi. Okay? So my amplitude, or I'm sorry, my period is pi. The phase shift, we are going to go left pi over 4 units, and I have none for vertical shift. There is none. So if there's no vertical shift, y equals 0 is my midline. So my midline is going to be the x-axis there. Okay? All right, so this is a cosine. So I'm going to start off at the maximum. Okay? And then I'm going to go, and just remember for this one, you guys, the period is pi. All right? So I'm going to go maximum, 0, minimum, 0, maximum. Okay, unlike the other ones where this was 2 pi, the period, the period in this one is just pi. All right, so there's the length of one cycle right there. If I wanted to, I could keep going. All right, maximum 0, minimum 0, max. All right, and I could keep going as long as I wanted to. All right, so now I've got my parent function. Let's go ahead and apply our phase shift. So if this is pi, okay, pi over 4 is going to be one unit there. All right, so I'm just moving everything over 1 unit to the left, 1 unit to the left, 1 to the left. Okay, and we'll go 1 to the left here. All right. All right, there you go. So I took the blue function and I had a phase shift of pi over 4. So that means it moved left pi over 4. All right, so this one, the red one is y equals 2 cosine 2 theta plus pi over 4. Okay, guys, so that was 4 examples of graphing or translating the graphs and coming up with all that information. This is how you write an equation given the information. Remember, we're going to start off, it's either going to be cosine or sine, but we're going to use this, this form, if you will. All right, so this one has we're going to go pi over 2 units to the right and 2 units down. So we're going to go y equals cosine parenthesis. Now you can use x or theta, it does not matter. If we're moving a phase shift to the right, it's going to be x minus pi over 2, and then 2 units down, minus 2. Okay, so there's my phase shift, there's my vertical shift. All right, same thing with B. All right, we're going to start with this. So y equals 2 sine. All right, so I have looks like a phase shift of pi over 4. So x plus pi over 4, and we're going to go 1 unit up, plus 1. Phase shift, vertical shift. Okay, guys, a couple more here. And again, to save time, I kind of wrote this out a little bit. Okay, which equation describes the graph? So let's say that you had a multiple choice SAT type question where you have A, B, C, and D, and you have to match it up. Couple things first off. All right, what you want to do is you want to find the amplitude. So we're looking at this information. We have an amplitude, and it looks like a vertical shift for all of these, okay? And they're kind of all mixed up. So if we can eliminate some of them, that'd be great. All right, to find the amplitude, remember, you take the max minus the min, divide that by 2. So the maximum is 0, and the minimum is 20, all right? So if I went, amplitude is 0 minus negative 20, divide that by 2, the amplitude is going to be 20 divided by 2, so the amplitude is going to be 10. Well, if the amplitude is 10, I can get rid of A and I can get rid of B because both of those have an amplitude of 20. Okay? Zoom in a little bit. Okay, so here we go. We've got these two, and the only difference here, all right, is this has a 2x, okay, and this has just an x. All right? Okay. If I want to find the midline, all right, remember the midline is going to be halfway between the middle of the graph, right? Okay. All right. Well, I already found the midline. So let's find our b value, okay? Because in this case, b is 2, in this case, b is 1. All right. So if I'm looking here, if I'm looking here, the length of one cycle from here to there, okay, that's one cycle, that's 2 pi. All right, if this is 5 pi, 2 pi, 4 pi, that's 5 pi. So the period is 2 pi, okay, so that means that the b value must be 1. So since I know that b is 1, I know that my answer has to be D. Okay? All right, and example 5 is pretty much the same, okay? All right, so let's look down here. You can see, look at your choices here. We have 700 for an amplitude, 300, 200, and 200, okay? So the amplitude is 500 minus 100. Divide that by 2, okay, and that's going to be 200. All right, so I can get rid of A and I can get rid of C. So I know that my amplitude is 200. We gotta find that value of B again. That's the only thing that's different. All right, now we've done this before. Remember, to find the period is 2 pi over B. Okay, I don't know what B is, but I know that the period, if I look up here, all right, I'm gonna find that it is, so let's see here. If I start here and go here and stop, if I go down, that's 8, okay? So the length of my period is from 0 to 8. All right, so my period is 8. So 8 is equal to 2 pi over B. Cross multiply, divide by 8, reduce that, and your B value is pi over 4. And there's your answer. So for these two examples, guys, not to confuse you guys, but all you're doing is you're dissecting and you're finding the different parts. Okay, so amplitude, in this case, the vertical shift really didn't matter because they're both the same, but we had to find the B value. So any one of those could be the key to helping you figure out which one it is, okay? All right, guys, have a great day and get that homework done.